went to a careers evening, and I asked one question. I asked, how many times were you told about apprenticeships in this evening? And he said, not once. We need to change that perception that doing an apprenticeship in engineering is as good as going to university. It has to be seen at that same level. It can be a fantastic way of life, but it's not perceived that way. I really think it's getting the message of how good a life you can have in engineering through to children at a very, very young early age, and keeping that message going throughout their whole schooling career.
Why don't schools drag businesses in? There's no incentive to. That's why. They get their money from pushing students through schools, not bringing local businesses in.
Yeah.
This country educated and qualified 50,000 hairdressers 2 years ago, and there's only 10,000 vacancies for them. We need 80,000 engineers a year. We're only qualifying 28,000. So there's this supply-demand imbalance, and we shouldn't be educating people for jobs that there is no demand for.
There are various pressures, whether you talk about the schooling system, they're being pushed to produce results. And I'm sure that's the same with university. It's slightly different now because the student has more control because they have to pay for it. So I think you have a more discerning undergraduate who will actually choose the course which they could then develop into a future career. But I still think it's us again. I don't think we help ourselves. I think it's always either the school's fault, it's the university's fault, but it's not the industry's fault. It's all of our responsibilities. The majority of the time of that child is with either a parent or a guardian or outside of school. So we as an industry need to take that message to the child and to the parent and to the teacher.
We get some really brilliant young engineers that come out of the graduate system, but unfortunately they haven't necessarily got any composite experience whatsoever. They aren't necessarily always providing within the mechanical engineering courses the relevant and up-to-date knowledge that is perhaps relevant to the industries that are out there today.
History plays a bit of a part in why we're not attracting the graduates. If you look at their parents or the next generation up, what they will have seen in this country is a lot of decline in engineering and manufacturing, offshoring. If you've got the parents of the people we're trying to attract that are very disenfranchised with manufacturing in the UK, why would they even suggest that sort of career to their children? Why would you want to go into that? In 10 years' time, you're going to be made redundant. And whilst there's a lot of good news stories about reshoring and apprenticeships growing and opportunity certainly aerospace has in this country at the moment, it's not enough to create the surge that we need.
I think there needs to be engagement from the universities, the schools and industry to come together to try and work out how we can convey this message in a better fashion and therefore make it a more interesting and wide-ranging industry to get involved in.
We're seeing very much a difference between UK graduates and graduates from abroad. And when we put out for vacancies where we're looking for graduates, probably 90% at least are from abroad. And I think that's purely down to how they've been educated and made aware of these opportunities as they grow. Minimum grades in GCSEs sometimes can work against practical apprenticeships, where we require a minimum of C level in English and maths. I think there are people that will be put off the fact that maybe they haven't got that grade but have got very, very good hands-on skills.
There is no single subject in the school curriculum called engineering, so I think some students struggle with what does that actually mean. There was a survey recently, 1,000 14 to 16-year-olds who's the greatest living British engineer, and the highest answer was Kevin Webster from Coronation Street. So the general perception, the most popular perception was a guy in an overalls, probably grease up to his elbows, a monkey wrench, probably not a well-paid job and a very dirty job. So yeah, we've got a huge perception issue to overcome, because that's not the case.
It's very much seen as a dirty old-fashioned industry for men, and it's far from it. You know, we literally can eat your breakfast off of our factory floor.
One of the slides I put up in my presentations is a picture of an iPhone.
You need to inspire these children. I mean, you need to make the connection between what they use as technology and understand within that technology there's engineering. You have to design and you have to manufacture.
You expect buffering, 4G, you expect Facebook, all of that, and that thing delivers it all the time, but you never think of how, why. How was it assembled? How was it designed?
So whether it's the fashion industry, food industry, engineering, it all has to be made by somebody and designed by somebody, and I don't think there's an appreciation that actually people need to make things.
It's about the perception and the way we portray engineering. We tend to put dirty career, dirty hands. It doesn't have to be like that anymore.
It still seems to be very male orientated, and it has to change.
Move on and look at the positive side, as you say, with all this new technology, and sell the new, don't think of the old, and then maybe the message will get over.
The people that are going to solve all the problems of the world aren't going to be the politicians. It's going to be the engineers. You know, if you want a well dug in the middle of Africa, I can't see a politician darting out there and digging a hole and hopefully coming up with the water. It'll be the engineers.
The government sat down with industries and sort of said, you know, we want to pass the responsibility of apprenticeships over to you, the employers. There's two. One's called Industrial Partnership and the other one's called Trailblazers. GKN, the big boys, Rolls-Royce, BAE Systems, Messier, they have the appetite, the wherewithal, the money, the infrastructure to do this.
We're a fairly small SME. There's 67 of us. We have 7 apprentices, 4 trainees. Size does matter. We are too small to start looking at our own schemes on our own systems and drawing funding down.
You've got big gaps between the new bright things coming in, those with 10, 20 years of experience, and those who are ready for retirement. I don't think we're going to fill that gap for probably 10 years, if not 20 years.
Engineering makes up our everyday lives. Everything we wear, we touch, the cars we go to work in, the buses we go to school on, it's all an engineered product. It's all designed and engineered, and people need to understand that, not just take it for granted.